Welcome to Castified. Today, we're exploring a recent event that really showcases the raw power of our planet. And alongside that, some truly remarkable human resilience. We're talking about the massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake that's just rocked near Russia's Pacific coast. That was on July 30th, 2025. And, right off the bat, one detail really jumped out from our sources. As the ground was shaking violently beneath them, surgeons in Kamchatka, Russia, just kept going, continued a critical operation completely undeterred.
It's such a powerful image, isn't it? The sheer force of an earthquake like that, well, it sends ripples, both literal and figurative, across huge distances. This one didn't just cause local disruption, it actually triggered widespread tsunami warnings right across the Pacific Ocean. So in our deep dive today, we'll kind of unfold those immediate human reactions, look at the science of tsunamis, and even touch upon some pretty fascinating historical and cultural takes that have popped up around this event.
Absolutely. And our aim for you, listening, is to come away with a quick but thorough understanding. What happened, why it matters, and some of those surprising facts that came out without feeling buried in information. Think of it as like a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on a major global event. So let's start by zeroing in on the event itself. The earthquake. Okay, so it struck off Russia's Pacific coast July 30th, 2025. Initially, the U.S. Geological Survey had it at 8.7 magnitude, but that was revised pretty quickly up to a staggering 8.8. Just to give you some context, that makes it the strongest earthquake in that particular area since 1952. So yeah, pretty significant.
Yeah, very significant. And what's particularly striking right after it happened was that composure from the medical teams in Kamchatka. Almost unbelievable. There's viral video footage, you might have seen it, showing them just continuing a critical surgery, no pause, even with the room shaking powerfully. It really shows, the kind of focus needed in those situations. The patient's needs just override everything else. And the good news is the health ministry confirmed afterwards the patient was doing well, which is frankly amazing, testament to their skill.
Definitely. And the public reaction to that video, it really showed this sort of universal admiration, didn't it? Comments like, "Brave dear people were everywhere." And interestingly, one comment that got shared a lot, sort of reflecting a perception, was, "You rarely see a panicking Russian." Which, well, he gives you a glimpse into how different cultures might view reactions to extreme stuff. But what really caught my eye was another comment someone made, kind of a hypothetical, saying that in the U.S., maybe the surgery would have stopped because, quote, "there is no insurance code number for earthquakes." Yeah, that's, well, it's a sharp bit of social commentary, isn't it? Cynical, maybe, but sharp.
It is, yeah. It highlights different priorities, perhaps. Now, tying this back to the science, this quake, as we said, it's classic Pacific Ring of Fire activity, always rumbling there. The measurements are key to understanding why it had such a big impact. It struck at a depth of about 19 kilometers, and its epicenter was roughly 125 kilometers southeast of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsk. That's the main city in Kamchatka. So that combination, strength, depth, location, that's what made it such a potent trigger for what came next.
Right, the ripple effect. It was almost immediate and incredibly wide. Tsunami alerts started spreading across, well, a huge chunk of the Pacific Rim. First, it was Japan's northern island, Hokkaido, and Russia's Kuril Islands. They were put on high alert, expecting waves, 3 to 4 meters?
That was the initial forecast, yeah.
And then the warnings just broadened out across the United States, Hawaii, and a big stretch of the U.S. West Coast. We're talking Alaska, Oregon, Washington, even parts of California. It just shows how connected everything is in that basin.
It really does. And maybe we should clarify the terminology here because the sources use specific terms. There's the difference between a tsunami warning and a tsunami watch. A warning means dangerous flooding, strong currents are expected, you need to act immediately, evacuate if told. A watch, though, that means a tsunami might happen. So stay alert, be ready, but it's not quite as immediate a threat. That distinction is vital for safety.
Absolutely vital. And we saw different impacts in different places almost right away. In Japan, the JMA, that's the Japan Meteorological Agency, they issued urgent alarms. Sirens went off in Hokkaido, people told to evacuate. And crucially, given the history there, workers at the Fukushima nuclear plant, they had to be evacuated too, just as a precaution.
Understandable precaution.
Meanwhile, over in Hawaii, things fortunately calmed down a bit. The alert level was lowered to an advisory. Governor Josh Green reported no damage initially, so people could come back from higher ground.
That's good news for Hawaii.
Yeah. And along the U.S. West Coast, they did see some waves. Places like Monterey, San Francisco, and a warning stayed in place for a stretch of coastline between Cape Mendocino and the Oregon border for a while. Even as far away as New Zealand, people were warned to stay away from beaches, rivers, harbors because of unusual waves and strong currents.
And back in Kamchatka itself, right near the epicenter,
Mm-hmm.
well, the sources describe pretty chaotic scenes. Buildings shaking violently, mobile networks crashing, widespread power outages, people running into the streets in fear, understandably, as the shaking continued. It really paints a picture of the raw power at ground zero.
Yeah, a very vivid picture. So let's shift focus a bit. What does an event like this tell us about tsunamis more broadly? How do they work?
Fundamentally, right, they're usually triggered by sudden, huge movements on the ocean floor. Mostly it's strong earthquakes like this one that just displace massive amounts of water. And that displacement generates these incredibly powerful waves that can literally race across entire oceans at speeds like a jet plane. It's kind of mind-boggling. It is. And while earthquakes are the usual suspect, it's interesting that tsunamis can also be set off by other big events. Our sources mention things like major volcanic eruptions, big underwater landslides, or, even though it's rare, a meteorite hitting the ocean. So the question becomes, just how destructive can these be, historically? Well, look at the 1883 Krakatoa eruption. That caused tsunamis that killed around 30,000 people. And much more recently, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. That was from a 9.1 magnitude quake off Indonesia. Just devastating. Over 220,000 people lost their lives across 11 countries. These are immense tragedies.
Sobering numbers. Absolutely sobering. And just a quick, interesting side note on language. The word tsunami, it's Japanese, literally means harbor wave, which makes sense. And it's important to remember, people often mistakenly call them tidal waves, but they've got nothing to do with tides at all. Now, beyond the science, beyond the immediate human drama, our sources picked up on something else. Something, well, surprising maybe, a layer of cultural interpretation around this event. It kind of taps into that deep human need to find patterns, find meaning, even in chaos.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. There was a specific prophecy linked to this earthquake. It involves Ryo Tatsuki, a Japanese manga artist. Some people have started calling her the new Baba Vanga of Japan.
Right, and this goes back to a manga book she published way back in 1999. It was called The Future I Saw. And in that book, she apparently claimed the sea around southern Japan would, quote, boil on a very specific date, July 5th, 2025.
Okay, now here's the really unexpected part from the sources.
Yeah.
Even though the earthquake didn't hit on July 5th exactly, a lot of people are now connecting her prediction to the month of July 2025. And what's really striking is that apparently thousands of people had already started canceling trips to Japan for July before this earthquake even happened. All because of this growing fear, this concern around Tatsuki's prophecy. Japanese social media was reportedly buzzing with debates about it, people calling her warning eerily accurate, comparing her to Baba Vanga. It just shows how a narrative can take hold, even if the facts don't line up perfectly.
It's a really remarkable example of how people process information and react to it. Makes you wonder about the psychology behind it all, why prophecies hold such a pull in uncertain times.
It absolutely does. But while these discussions are fascinating, and they're definitely part of the story that unfolded here, it's really important to stress, and the source material makes this clear, these references to predictions are just for informational purposes. They're not scientific evidence. The critical thing, always, during natural disasters, is to rely on official sources, on the science, even while we acknowledge that human need to find meaning elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. This deep dive has really given us a shortcut, hasn't it, to understanding a major event. It's this mix of hard science, incredible human stories, and yes, that search for meaning. The surprising details, like the surgeons or the prophecy angle, they definitely stick with you.
They do. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? The Pacific region, it's one of the most geologically active places on Earth. That's a given. And humans, well, we seem hardwired to look for patterns, for meaning, especially in big disruptive events, whether through science or other interpretations like prophecy. So what's the truly valuable knowledge we take away from disasters like this? Is it just the scientific data? Is it those powerful stories of human courage? Or is it the practical stuff, the preparedness, the early warning systems that actually save lives? What does it really mean to be prepared in a world that's both scientifically predictable in some ways, and yet still feels profoundly mysterious at times?
A lot to chew on there. Definitely food for thought. We hope this deep dive leaves you feeling informed, maybe a little more curious, and encourages you to reflect on just how multifaceted these powerful events really are.